of course, we have Brooke in the driver's seat, making sure that we all stay in the right lanes. So welcome, everybody. I think we'll give it a couple of more minutes. It looks like we have about a third of the attendees that we're expecting. So we'll give it a few minutes and then we'll get started. Okay. Oh, okay. I think maybe, Matt, maybe we should just get going. What do you think?
Be great.
All right.
Thanks, Randy.
Everybody. Okay.
And thanks everyone for joining today. As Randy mentioned, we'll be talking about our utilities and fiber to the home solution and our TrueSense Fiber Gateway. Just a couple quick items up front. We are recording the session, and that will be made available following our webinar today. And of course, we have our just a quick note on legal disclaimer here. What we're going to present is confidential and proprietary, and we'd expect and hope you guys to keep it that way. So thanks for that. Randy, if you go to the next slide. I'm going to give a brief introduction to Tantalus and what we're doing and seeing in the market, and then turn it over to Randy for some deeper exploratory of where we're headed and doing relative to fiber to the home deployment and our solution set there. Just as background for those of you that are and or may not be familiar with Tantalus so much, we've been around in the utility marketplace for about 30 years now, specifically focusing on advanced metering solutions over the past decade or more. And just so you understand and get a sense of what we do and how we approach the market, we really focus on public power and electric cooperative utilities. So our mission and purpose is to give those players in that utility market, public power and electric cooperatives, the solution that fits their needs. We are 100% focused there. We do not deliver or service the IOU market. And we've been doing this for a while. So we've got about 200 customers across the US, Canada, and the Caribbean in this space, mostly around our AMI solutions, but I'll talk about briefly later. We've expanded beyond that over the past few years as well. Randy, next slide, please. I do want to provide some context as we get into the fiber to the market space that we're going to focus on today. But what we're seeing in the landscape today, and we've heard this from utilities, customers, partners, and other players, is really a few shifts that are happening. And my sense is that most of us are going through this. One of them being a changing economic landscape. So there are demands on utilities today that are new and are significant, right? So we're asked for profitable or good returns while trying to meet the consumer demands that are out there, as well as governmental or legislative requirements on us as well. Randy, if you go to the next one. Clearly, we've seen over the past few years some shifting in the population and demographics that are out there, whether that is within your territory moving out or moving in. We're seeing rural folks sometimes moving to urban environments, but with COVID, that's changing as well. So we see folks moving back to a rural environment. That can lead to demands on the grid and energy. And while they are doing that, there's also a different level of consumer expectations out there. So as you know, our customers are all wanting more out of the service that they've signed up for, whether that's electricity or phone or internet or all kinds of different offerings, but consumer expectations are high. Relative to the utility marketplace, there's also a changing from the infrastructure itself. So we have an older infrastructure that's delivering today. There are operational challenges to that. The utilities are working to ensure that they can continue to deliver low cost as possible, high quality service and power to their customers. And then finally, and we're going to talk a lot about this, a lot more about this today, we're seeing an enhanced or increased number of distributed energy resources being deployed across the network. And we anticipate that will continue to grow over time. And what we're going to get into today is how we're thinking about that can impact the grid and how we can help with that continued deployment of DERs. And then finally, there's environmental pressure, both from consumers and governmental bodies, as to how we handle, carbon going into the atmosphere, what we're doing to reduce that, and how we're handling a sustainable environment going forward. With that said, Randy, if you go to the next slide, there are a lot of challenges that you all are encountering or that we've heard from utilities that you're encountering out there. One is, how can I continue to leverage what I have today while anticipating or growing into the future? I have made an investment. Can I continue to use that? How can I continue to take advantage of that while I move into an environment where I'm required to deliver on demands, like I mentioned before, that are somewhat new and difficult to manage? With that said, if you're looking at new system migration, you want to make sure that you're encountering and adopting and using that system as seamlessly as possible as we make the move, and maintaining service levels to your consumer. And part of that revolves around data. So what we're seeing and hearing from our customers, and I'm sure you're encountering, is there's now a call for the use of data. There's a preponderance of data out there that can be provided and you have access to. How do I leverage that in an efficient manner? What do I do with the data that's coming in? How do I harness it, collect it, and then take advantage or action against it? So as we think about that, a lot of that's occurring and becoming more prevalent due to the infrastructure that's available. So as we see the preponderance or the proliferation of different network architectures, including a large number of fiber deployments that are happening out there. So all of a sudden, there's a requirement for data. And by the way, you're able to access that data on an almost instantaneous basis. So we have a lot of low latency data coming in. And now I need to figure out how to use that data. And oh, by the way, from a fiber perspective, I'm not just talking about the smart grid, of course. We're going to talk a little bit more about this later, but there's now a call from our consumer base for high-speed internet and broadband access, especially for underserved communities. I mentioned DER before. That's becoming more prevalent across the grid. What is our customer base? What are our utility customers looking to do, and how can they manage those resources as they come online? There's certain great advantages to those, but they can also present operational challenges to the grid and to the network itself. All of this leads to what Tantalus is trying to do, is to incorporate and deliver against solutions for those challenges to develop and build sustainability for our utility customers. So we're working to help a utility become sustainable from the sense of, I need to deliver against the pressures that I'm getting from environmental requirements, the government requirements that are out there, and my consumers. So Tantalus is working hard to deliver on solutions that enable that for our customer base. Rainey, if you go to the next slide, please. So the vision for us is to actually accommodate and incorporate all of those into delivering and developing for our customers a sustainable utility that looks at environmental issues and incorporates and leverages those as required. Building community. Typically, our electric cooperative and municipal customers have great relationships with their members and customers out there. And again, to help with operational challenges and issues that are demanded upon utilities today, all the while trying to keep that balance. We want to deliver great service, and from a financial perspective, make that possible. In terms of delivering against the requirements for financial feasibility. Next slide, please, Randy. So all that said, from a Tantalus perspective, what we're really focused on is we're purpose-driven to deliver against this market with solutions that are flexible, reliable, efficient, cost-effective, and optimize what we're delivering for you. So we really focus on this market and have built relationships over the past 30 years to provide services for public power and electric cooperatives. Next slide, please, Randy. And Randy, if you just speed through this just a bit. So we've been around for 30 years. We've deployed across our systems, which have focused on advanced metering in the past, at about 190 customers now, all of those within that market set. As I mentioned, we've seen more and more proliferation of multi-commodity utilities. We have some great technology that enables us to deliver in that space. And then as we've seen the deployment of AMI, we've seen our customers adding to that through beyond what we call beyond AMI applications, whether that's load management, distribution, automation, lighting, software applications, all of that being added to the core Tantalus network that we've sold into our customer base. Next slide, please, Randy. And just for perspective on our presence in the fiber market and fiber to the home, we actually have about 15 or 20 customers that have built out fiber to the home networks over the past decade. And we've enabled that from a smart grid perspective for them to take advantage of that network through our product, the IP socket gateway, which you're seeing in the picture here. That product was designed with help from some of the customers that you're seeing, the utilities that you're seeing on the screen here, EPB Chattanooga, Nine Star Connect, Morristown, and others. But that particular product, Randy, if you go to the next bit, please, actually enables our customers to both power up an outdoor ONT as they were deploying their fiber network, and also through an Ethernet connection to that ONT, deliver a smart grid or move smart grid data over their fiber network. So we've got 20 customers doing this now. We've been around the market for a long time with utilities that have built out fiber networks. Randy, next slide, please. And that's significant as we think about the state of the market today. So while we have a number of customers that built out fiber in the past, that demand for broadband and fiber deployments is increasing, as you all probably know. Part of that's funded by consumer demand, but another element that's working into that is the availability of funding to build out infrastructure. You see some of the funds that are available, RDOF, CAF2, Reconnect, and the new infrastructure bill, including about $65 billion devoted towards broadband deployment. Next, please, Randy. So again, utilities are looking for data in that low latency that fiber can deliver. So they want to use that both for the grid, to deliver broadband, and to deliver on consumer demands that they're getting from the market. So finally, Randy, if we go to the next bullet, I think that leads us to our next gen product that Randy is going to run us through. But I just suffice it to say that we've had presence in the market with our current customer base from a fiber perspective. And now we're taking all of these learnings in the current state of the market to evolve our portfolio with the next gen solution that Randy's going to run us through today. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. So yeah, it's my pleasure to sort of walk you through the concepts that this new concept that we're bringing to market. This has been a long road. We have been talking to, multiple utilities such as yourself over the past almost 2 years now to come up with a design. And really, what we're looking at here is, there's a unique intersection that is happening right now. The utilities are being given almost a do-over now, right? Many of the co-ops, they stem from the fact that nobody wanted to provide power in rural areas because there just wasn't enough money in it. And now we're seeing the same thing with the digital divide, especially with COVID, people are clamoring, for broadband access, but, many of the for-profit organizations are looking at this and saying, no way, we're not going to spend the kind of money that is needed to provide broadband. And so now you have this dichotomy between those folks living in the urban areas who have access to, high quality broadband and people living in urban areas who don't. And so there's a lot of funding happening right now. And the other thing that is also happening simultaneously with this is there's now a whole bunch of carbon mandates being set at the state and federal levels. There's the electrification of everything that is now being pushed. And, we are seeing more and more, weather events, severe weather events that are disrupting, the distribution network. And, there's a real reliance, from a sustainability and from a resiliency, there's a real reliance happening now on getting customers to connect devices that store and generate energy onto your distribution system. And this really creates a challenge for you, but it's also an opportunity. And the fact that you guys are on this webinar and you are considering or in the process or have already deployed fiber to the home, that means you've got an incredible backbone that we are hoping to leverage. So, our question, or the question that I've been asking myself and utilities such as yourself over the past 2 years is, what if you could do more with your fiber deployment? Typically, we understand, a lot of the electrical companies, especially the cooperatives, you're providing services through a meter socket at or near the premises. And when you're deploying fiber, you're typically using your right of way. So you're bringing fiber in along the power lines that you have, and you're bringing fiber to the home, at or near the meter socket. And what we're proposing is, that we give you a device that allows you to leverage that fiber to create a utility controlled communications path into the premise that uses the same IP standards that consumer-centric DERs required. All of these DERs, this distributed energy equipment, whether it be car chargers, whether it be power walls or energy storage, whether it be inverters or solar panels or smart water heaters, they're all designed around a consumer who are expecting to be able to manage and control these devices directly using their device, whether they are at home or whether they're on the road. And so what when you buy a Tesla Powerwall, for example, you're not buying it with an Itron AMI network card in it. You're not buying it with a Tantalus AMI network card in it. It comes with Wi-Fi, and that's what they expect to be able to use. And then what the other aspect of that is not just to be able to bridge communications to these devices so that you can partner with your customers on the deployment of these devices, but you also want to see what these devices are doing to your distribution grid. So this device that we're proposing not only leverages the fiber to extend TCP/IP communications into the home, but it also provides you with an advanced sub-cycle consumption and power quality measurements at the socket to support highly granular interval data. So you can send interval data, second by second interval data, for example, directly from this device to a home automation system, or if it's a business and they have some automation within the business to control the power and manage their energy bill, you can publish the data directly from this device to those systems. You can at the same time stream second-by-second updates to your SCADA system if you want to, or you can stream 5 or 10 or 15-minute interval or hourly interval data to your billing system if you want to. This is a Linux computer that's sitting there with these measuring capabilities in the socket, and we can stream that data at different rates to different types of devices. And because we're hooked up directly to fiber, we have the capacity to do so, and there's no latency to the data. In addition to that, because of this high-speed consumption or this high-speed metering capability, we can actually provide real-time phase identification. So if you're in the process of doing a restoration from a storm event, as power is being restored, these devices will tell you what phase they are connected to. And lastly, what we're also proposing is being able to configure these devices to capture snapshots of the voltage waveform around events. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. So this is sort of where the ecosystem that we sort of envision. Today, you're bringing fiber typically to the side of the house, outdoor fiber. You're going into a demarcation box. You're splicing between your outdoor fiber and your indoor fiber. And then you're running an indoor fiber inside the home for the ONT. And what we're proposing here is that we give you a device that sits in the meter socket that allows you to do that splicing. And we leverage that fiber that is going through the splice point within our device to also hive off TCP/IP communications, if you will, through an optical transceiver and power communications that is controlled by you. So this would be, we create a Wi-Fi hotspot here that is owned by you. You control it, you manage it, you decide what the SSID is, whether you want to broadcast it, you decide what the password is. It's your Wi-Fi. And the devices that you are partnering with your customers on, whether they be hot water heaters or whether they be solar installations, battery storage, EV chargers, EVs themselves, you have the ability now to control these because you've got TCP/IP reach directly to these devices, okay? Now, Wi-Fi obviously from the meter socket isn't going to reach everywhere, so we're going to back it up by using what's called GreenFi, which is a slower power line carrier internet extension that is very popular in the space, and I'll talk about that. But we use the wires behind the meter to actually reach to these devices. So, it's a 10 megabit per second connection. We can, there are some car chargers, for example, that have GreenFi built into them. But, what we can do here is we can extend TCP/IP communications through a combination of Wi-Fi and through a combination of power line carrier so that you can connect to and control these DER devices that are behind the meter. So how do we achieve this? Well, first off, we need to be connected to the fiber. So our particular device, it's going to support multiple vendors and multiple technologies. We're going to ask that it has a card slot in it or what's called an SFP slot, small form pluggable. It's a standard used in the optical industry. So you would buy an SFP optical transceiver from the vendor of choice and using the technology of choice. So if you're using GPON or if you're using EPON or you're using active Ethernet, it doesn't matter if you're using Calix or Nokia or Adtran, you would just source an SFP device from them and you would insert it within this device. The only requirement is that it be an SGMI compliant device and that it has a maximum data rate of 1 gigabit per second. The SFP transceiver will be serviceable, so you can service this device if you need to without disrupting power to the premises. So that, we have designed this device so that you can disconnect power safely from the internal electronics, and then you can swap out the SFP if you need to. The design is also such that, yes, our TrueSense fiber gateway is going to need a meter technician to install it because it's going inside the meter socket behind the meter. But we've designed it in such a way that a fiber technician can independently go to this device, connect or troubleshoot the fiber connection, again, without disrupting power to the premises, and they can do so safely because they're not reaching into the meter socket whatsoever. And we've designed the device so that you can easily disconnect power from the internal electronics, again, without disrupting power to the home. To support multiple installation scenarios, we're going to have two versions of the TrueSense fiber gateway. The first version, yeah.
I'm going to make just one quick comment.
Yes.
Thanks for all this. Just want to make sure that everyone knows we will have time for Q&A at the end. But just as Randy's going through, if you do have any questions and you want to put them in chat, I'd ask you to do that and we can collect them there and get to them. But use your chat if you need, but we will have time at the end as well. Sorry to interrupt, Randy.
No, Matt, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay. So this is the first this is the one that we just had at the Fiber Connect show. This is our first prototype. So this device is really, it's got a single conduit going into the bottom, and it is for a dedicated fiber strand. So this version is really designed for deployments where you have a dedicated single fiber strand that you are using for smart grid, okay? Or where perhaps you're using a separate demarcation box, you've already got one out there. It may or may not have an integrated splitter. You might be running multiple fibers to the external demarcation box, and now you're going to light one up directly for this device. But basically this device has you bring a connectorized fiber strand through this flexible conduit into the TFG. You connect it directly to the SFP optical transceiver, which sits inside of here. And now you have, internet connectivity and, everything else. For those installations where you want to support splicing and splitting of a single fiber strand, so, for example, you've got a fiber strand and you've got the light budget and you've got the split capabilities, or you haven't exhausted your split ratios, then at this point, what you can do is you can take that single fiber and you can route it into our device here. And inside of here, what we'll have is we'll have a splitter that sits inside of here. It takes about 2 dB of your light budget. And you can run that splitter, and then we take that fiber strand and we send one into the home for the consumer. So it just runs the indoor ONT as you do today. And the other one goes into the SFP device that sits inside of this socket, so that you now can also share in that internet connection. So in here, the fiber strand is routed through one of these flexible conduits into the TrueSense fiber gateway, where you do a splice. It's run through a splitter, and then you take the other fiber, the indoor fiber, and you run that indoor, and it will also be protected through a flexible conduit. So this has two conduits in the bottom, one where the fiber is coming in from the utility, and another where the fiber split is going back out, to power or to provide communications to the indoor ONT for consumer purposes. So this is how we get access to the internet. Now, in addition to this, what we're promising here is the ability to do some very advanced voltage and power quality measurements. The device itself, because it has our computing platform inside of it, we're going to add advanced voltage and power quality measurement capabilities. So you will be able to select one or more measurement channels. So you have a full menu here. So we can sample voltage, amperage, volt amps, kilowatts, so demand, instantaneous demand. You can look at kilowatt hours. You can look at power factor and total harmonic distortion. And each of these are going to be sampled 256 times per cycle, or over 15,000 times per second, okay? And then these samples will be GPS timestamped. So this data, if you think about it, is going to be accurate, the timestamps, across your entire network, because we're using a GPS signal, 2.5 microseconds. So now you can take this data and you can look at intra-grid measurements. You have an event, maybe it affected a particular feeder or a particular substation. You have all these measurements, measuring devices, the TFG devices, and each of them are capturing a waveform around the event. And you can pull that data out of these devices, and then you can run your analysis, and you will have highly granular data points that you can work with across that entire, down that entire feeder or behind that entire substation. And so now you can see what the problem is. We will, there is a provision for an SD card. So within the device, so you can put a micro SD card in there to extend the storage. So if you want to use the capture capabilities of this device, you will need to supply it with a micro SD. The voltage and power factor measurements are going to be 0.3% accurate, and the power consumption and current measurements are going to be 0.5% accurate. So what we're going to do is we're going to support streaming of this data directly to, as I said, any IP address that you want us to send this data to. So this data can go directly to your SCADA system. This data can go to your billing system. This data can go to a customer's home automation system. It can go to a control system in a store, or a factory. It'll also provide outage reporting. We're going to put capacitance within this device so that it keeps not only our device alive, but keeps these the optical components alive, so that we can get outage reporting through the device up to your head end. There's also a feature in here where you can do what's called a capture and notification. So as I mentioned, you can set a rule around any one of these measures, and you can set a threshold. So you can set a maximum value for that value and a minimum value for that value. And if the system will monitor it 250 to 6 times per cycle, and if the measured value goes outside of the range that you have set for a period of time that you have also defined in as small as 1 cycle and as long as, we haven't quite defined that yet, but it'll be a longer period. When that happens, what'll happen is the trailing window of samples will be snapshot, and then we will continue to capture data again for another window that you define. And it will be, you can set what your coincident values are. So if voltage goes above a threshold for, let's say, 10 cycles, you can optionally capture amperage, you can optionally capture power factor, total harmonic distortion, and it'll capture all of that data, and it'll then notify you that an event has occurred. Because to stream this kind of sub-cycle data could overwhelm even a fiber network. So what we're planning on is storing the data locally, having the ability for you to set thresholds or define events, and then we will capture the data before and after that event has occurred, and then we will notify you, and then you can pull that data later for whatever analytics that you want to be able to run. Of course, the main reason for providing that kind of measurement capability is for you to be able to detect the presence of DERs, or to be able to see what the DERs are doing to your distribution network. The other element now is you need to be able to communicate with these DERs. So what we're doing is we're going to extend connectivity, as I mentioned before, using a combination of technologies. We will use Wi-Fi. So we'll use 802.11 BGN and AC, where the utility controls the SSID and the passwords. Okay, so you don't have to worry now about the consumer changing the SSID on their ONT or changing the password on their home network, and then you being locked out from those devices. This is a Wi-Fi network that you control. The other element is the home plug PLC, because maybe the TrueSense Fiber Gateway is installed at or near the transformer, and you don't have, the Wi-Fi isn't going to reach into the basement of the premise where the smart hot water heater is. So what you'll use, and you can see these devices here, you've probably seen them in your Best Buy catalog, but they're quite readily available. And these devices allow you to convert from either wired Ethernet or Wi-Fi to the home plug standard. And as I mentioned, we're going to use the GreenPhi substandard of the IEEE 1901 standard, which is slower but gives us greater reach, because we want to make sure that you have, that you will be able to connect to all of the behind the meter distributed energy resource type devices. Now, this is an important point. The connectivity that we're proposing here is designed to support the integration of DER devices to a third-party DERMS or ADMS using a number of different protocols. We really are protocol agnostic, because all of the protocols that are being proposed today, and there's a lot of competing protocols out there as people are making land grabs. But you got Smart Energy Protocol 2.0, which is now IEEE 2030.5, which is very popular in California. And then you also have IEEE 1547. The good news is they both run over TCP/IP. And there are DERM systems and ADMS systems that are bilingual, so they can speak both language. This connectivity is not designed or not intended to be used to extend broadband for consumer purposes. Okay, we're not intending to run consumer broadband through our device. This is for the utility only, for the purposes of integrating DERs. Now, these devices will need to be authenticated by the utility before they are allowed to connect through the TFG. So we're still working on the security framework, but we envision that you're going to have to pre-provision these devices. You're going to have to authorize these devices, and we will make sure that the data stream coming from the TrueSense Fiber Gateway is separated from the consumer data stream. So they'll be separately encrypted. We'll make sure that that's all nice and secure and tight, so that you're not going to get any unauthorized devices connected to your backbone. Okay. Lastly, this device also supports, because AMI, and because it sits in the meter socket. Now, the interesting thing about this is you can deploy the TrueSense Fiber Gateway with any RF or PLC based AMI. So if you just made a recent investment in something other than Tantalus, it's fine. You can use the TrueSense Fiber Gateway to augment the data that you're getting from your existing investment. If you have a PLC system, for example, and you haven't quite written it off yet, or you don't have the funds to go out and replace it, no problem. We don't care what technology you plug into the front of our device. That works on the distribution side, and we're completely agnostic to it. However, in order to provide the feature set that we are talking about, these devices actually run our distributed computing platform, which we call TrueEdge. It's an SE Linux distributed computing platform, and it supports our AMI network. So, if you wanted to migrate, or if you wanted to augment your AMI by running distribution automation over Tantalus, or demand response load management over Tantalus, or community lighting, so street light control, you can do that. You can mix and match. So you have options here, okay? In addition, if you have existing investments in Itron ERT devices, water, gas, electric, or you have Badger Orion CE deployment, or you have Neptune R900, our device, because of its capabilities and this technology we're now calling TrueScan, we can actually interoperate with those devices. So we can intercept the water, gas, and electric readings and alarms, and we can present those to you. So again, depending on your situation, you might just, stay with the competitor's AMI system that you have today, or you may decide to start augmenting it or migrating to a Tantalus AMI. Our True Edge computing platform is also going to provide the ability to support third-party applications in the future. It is a Linux computing platform, and we are in discussions with some folks. And the idea here is that we could expand the functionality of this platform because it's not static, right? We have a Linux computer that is connected to fiber. We can easily upgrade, we can easily add more features, more software, distributed applications. You know, we can extend the capabilities of this device. It even has a software configurable radio, which allows us to talk various protocols. So if there's another protocol, such as YSUN, for example, that becomes dominant in the future, we can actually deliver that protocol through a firmware upgrade using our software configurable radio, and we can implement that protocol if that becomes a driving force in the future. Okay. So this is basically, you know, what we've envisioned. This is, you know, most of this design has happened because we've been talking to a lot of different customers about their needs. And, you know, just so that you know, this isn't just vaporware. We're actually working on this. Our design efforts, you saw some prototypes. If you were at the Fiber Connect show, you probably met Hugh, and he was there with our prototype, and you know, showing it to you. And so the design efforts are largely complete. We have completed mechanical prototypes, some of which we have shown. We're currently undergoing contracting efforts to augment our development team. We want to put together, we want to build a large team so that we can accelerate the development of this. We've organized a steering committee consisting of utilities such as yourself. We plan to use these folk for not just helping us, you know, on issues as they come up during the design process, but they're also going to help us prioritize the features that we develop first. And they are also volunteering to help with the testing of these devices. So they will get, you know, prototypes of these devices. They will get, you know, early working samples of these devices, and we expect them to power these up in their meter shops. We expect them to do some testing with them and provide feedback, so that once we're done, once we've gone into production, we have a device here that hits the mark as far as public power utilities is concerned. We are also in parallel, we've got some partner discussions going. I don't want to talk about them, any specifics on those, but we want to make sure that you've got a rich ecosystem of fiber partners and DER control offerings when we go into production. So our timelines right now, we anticipate getting into having limited functionality prototypes available for field testing around the end of this year. And then we want to be in full production before the middle of next year. So that's our goals. Our invite to you as attendants of this webinar is, if you'd like to stay informed, please send an email to Matt Hiley, M-Hiley, at tantalus.com. And what we'll do is we'll put you on a distribution list, and as we go through steering committee meetings, and as there is information to disseminate, we'll provide you with updates so that you can stay informed on our progress and you can stay informed on the feature set. Okay. Questions?
Hey, Randy, let me just make a quick comment and maybe some questions that I've heard from Fiber Connect, and thank you all. Some of you were there. Appreciated meeting you. I was there too, Randy, so it wasn't just you. But we did have a good session there, and there was a lot of excitement around the solution. I'll say that one of the things that we heard and were asked about was, you know, how does the TrueSense Fiber Gateway apply and enable access to funding that's becoming available through different government sources, some of which I showed up on the screen earlier. And I would say that our understanding is based on the gateway's capability around and functionality relative to smart grid operations, that opens the door to different funds that are available to utilities. If you are in versus funds that are available for fiber deployment based on broadband services and consumer services. We have capability around helping you all understand what's available, what's becoming available, and how to, if needed, apply and hopefully access those funds. So I'd ask, if you do have questions around funding and you'd like help or guidance to the extent that we can, we do have some capability there and we'll be very open to helping you with that. So know that that's available as an offer from us. So you can get in touch with me, as Randy said. My email is on the previous page that you sent over.
Here too.
Thanks, Randy. One question that did come in here, Randy, is around what is my ability to add applications for handling renewables or EVs to the gateway in the future? So down the road, you know, after some time, what would I need to do there?
Yeah, that seems to be evolving. You know, we're keeping a pulse. There's a lot of different vendors out there that are proposing solutions. We too are looking at our. We too are also looking at our offerings. Right, we have a load management system, and we're looking at whether we want to augment our load controls, our Tantalus load management system to actually allow you to manage and monitor these things as well. So there are a lot of discussions and there's a lot of moving parts. The biggest piece is making sure that you have connectivity to these devices. Once you have the connectivity, then adding the control is actually a matter of selecting the software that gives you the most flexibility. All of these devices, that are out there, they're designed with the consumer in mind, right? So they're calling home to some kind of, mothership in the sky, if you will, or in the cloud, right? And so from there, the homeowner is able to manage and control these things. A lot of these devices also have utility access as well. So, at a bare minimum, for example, that it might have a 2030.5 interface that allows you to disconnect the inverter from the distribution system remotely, which means that if you've got a line that's down, for example, you can disconnect that inverter and de-energize and confirm through the measurement capabilities of our device, confirm that the voltage is now disconnected. So, there's a lot of, as I said, moving parts, but the main piece is to make sure that, you've got connectivity to these devices that is owned and controlled by you, the utility, and is secure, right? And so that's the biggest piece, right? And that's what we're providing here. So it's we want to get out in front of this. This thing can help you. It does attract funding. It also helps you with the economics. We've heard from some utilities that they said, hey, if I have this device, I can actually take the dark fiber in my fiber deployment, and I can make that an asset of the utility as opposed to an asset of the telecommunications, division that I've created. So, or subsidiary, right? So it helps, it does help the fact that we've got this, it will help you economically. And
Randy, a couple more questions have come in. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
One is, will the new gateway still act as a collector supporting up to 250 devices?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it has all the same. It operates like any other, Tantalus gateway. So if you're an existing Tantalus customer, this will act like any other gateway. So you can run whatever LAN mode you want, and you can run, connect up to 250 Tantalus devices and thousands of TrueScan devices to each one of these. So it's,
Okay, thanks. And then kind of related to that, is there any requirement of mode that we're operating in relative to the gateway?
No, it all depends on the feature set. So some of the applications we're talking about, of course, have to run in the newer communications modes. But if you still have some legacy, 2net devices out there, some first gen, you can certainly run those through the gateway.
Okay, folks. Well, if you have anyone else has any questions, please, now's your time to submit it over chat or bring it up. Otherwise, thank you. Just give a second here. Thank you for attending today. And again, if we were able to connect and talk at the Fiber Connect show, appreciate you being there. And here we certainly sensed a lot of excitement around what we're bringing to market. So your continued interest is appreciated. With that said, I don't have any other questions. So Brooke, I think we're good. And I don't know, we could probably hang on for a few more minutes if we need to for discussion.
Yeah, we can hang on.
Thanks, Randy.
I do want to, thank you for your time. I know that time is precious, and we appreciate your interest. And by all means, please, if you have any questions, even after this webinar, you think of something in the middle of the night, send us an email, and we'll get back to you. Thank you.